Nice. Well, welcome to this week's episode of Not Zero Podcast. Garrett's going to kind of lead this one. You got a lot of cool stuff, and you've been compiling this thread over what, like a week or two or something or more. And
Since June
oh, it's at
11th. June 11th.
it's at 606 views from my standpoint.
Yeah,
Thumbs
609
up.
for me. So at least the
Nice.
top part of it.
I took my laptop off air so that to have the best like Wi-Fi. So hopefully I'm not all glitchy and like.
Yeah, you seem fine for me.
Cool. So, so yeah, if you want to kind of just take it away, we're following up a little bit on some of the things that we've talked about with Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Palantir, and tying kind of all of it into geopolitical events, if I'm using the correct terminology, because it all kind of does matter. And people may say Peter Thiel's in the background, but he's actually very publicly represented, I think, is what we're going to get at. And Garrett, you've been compiling this stuff, so I think what we'll kind of do is I'll just let you run. And if I want to pause you, I'll, or add something, then I'll just let you know and we can go off that. But you did such a good job here. Like you said, you've got all the talking points. So if you want to just kind of take it away and yeah.
Yeah, just say, hey, yo, pause. And then I'll be like, okay.
Cool.
Because that's just
Hey,
funny.
yo.
Hey, yo.
Hey, Toad.
Okay, so this thread, so basically I said, I let off with, don't mind me, this is just a thread of some thoughts that I wanted to remember, obviously for the podcast. So I said, lost in the riots and public feud in the background, a relatively large tech data mining company called Palantir is gobbling up government contracts. It's reminiscent of the early 2000s Halliburton scandal. Bleh. If you're not familiar with the scandal, basically Halliburton was Dick Cheney's, the vice president's company he used to work for. He was the CEO of Halliburton before he became VP, and and before that, Cheney was the Secretary of Defense, and he did the whole he dished out all those military contracts to Lockheed and all those other companies, aerospace companies, and bomb makers and all that. And then when he became VP, he was on Halliburton's payroll still as VP, which is very conflicted interest. And this wasn't that big of a deal back then, but it should have been, because it's such a bad look for the VP to be on the payroll of a defense company, basically. And Halliburton did outfitting of the soldiers. They did food service. They did weapons. They did a lot of stuff. So it was it was bad. And he did get in trouble for it, but it was more just a slap on the wrist. It was don't do that again. You can't be on the payroll. And then they kind of swept it under the rug because obviously it's bad, really bad luck.
Yeah, I feel like he, it's one of those things that we hear so often in corporate punishment, where it's they make billions and get fined tens of millions or
it's pennies though. It's pennies, right? It's not. I don't even know if he was fined. It's just it was a slap on the wrist. Don't do that again. It's
yeah,
when you tell your child to no, stop that, and then you're okay, fine.
Yeah. And then the question is, did he stop that?
I don't know if he ever did, but he must have, I guess.
He stopped becoming VP, so I guess he stopped that half of it, but anyway, keep going, man.
Okay. But this time, it's not Dick Cheney, it's Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and J.D. Vance. Palantir is owned by Thiel, who is a shadowy businessman that proclaims to have conservative and libertarian values, yet he owns a company best known for data mining. Putting that aside for now, let's consider that Palantir has gained over $100 million in government contracts since 2011. The most notable and pertinent to today is a $30 million contract to design and implement something called Immigration OS. That's right, it's a program to track illegal immigrants and manage their deportations more efficiently. Apparently, it will be used this coming September. This comes back to the news of that Palantir will also be creating a citizen database of each U.S. citizen. This is all under Trump, who seemed to take a step in the right direction, but has now seemingly walked it all back, allowing Doge to make cuts but not actually putting it into law. But my focus here is on Immigration OS, which is merely a small piece of what some might call the start of a dystopian police state. I think we all knew this day would come, but it feels like it's getting there faster than ever. My problem with Immigration OS isn't that it's helping enforce the law more efficiently, it's that this technology will expand to track every citizen. Also, because it's government backed and funded, there's no way to vote out of it. That's an important point, I think. And once
Do you want to
something,
stop and talk about that point for a minute?
yeah, you can talk about it.
So, like this is kind of one of those things where we're getting imposed upon without representation, right? We have no way of recourse. It's almost kind of like we can't impeach Elon Musk because he's in an appointed position, right, or something.
He's a bureaucrat, I guess, yeah, because it wasn't like a voted position. It was like kind of a
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
a surrogate cabinet position, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And yeah, so it's like with this Immigration OS, which of course is being based off of their integration into the IRS and the ICE databases, and then like you mentioned up there about wanting to make a national database of all citizens, which yeah, of course you and I know, that's just dystopian. But just it's wild to me that like you said, it is a really important point that we have no way. This wasn't ever brought up in committee. This was never brought up on a bill. We never had the chance to be like, hey, we, the people, do not like this. We, the people, do not want this. We, the people, are not getting behind this. But yet, instead, I'm sure our tax dollars are funding it. Like
Oh, they definitely are, yeah,
$100 million.
100% funding it.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's also involved with the CIA, right? It says IRS and ICE. But I think that we proved that the CIA funds Palantir for its own purposes as well, right? Or got initial funding at least.
Yeah, I think so.
And
I think we did look that up before. It was
that's
like
just
partly CRA funded, and yeah.
at least started. I can't remember if it like continual. I'm sure it is continual because it's not like the CIA is just like, oh, we're going to give you initial investment money and forget about you, right? Like there's no way that they're going to invest in something and just be like, peace, like. Um, but it just like you said, I think it's so crucial that we have no recourse, right? Like, how do we get rid of this now as citizens? Like, yeah, like what, yeah,
Yeah, you're asking the big
good
questions
luck,
there, yeah. Kind of getting to that.
good luck.
Yep.
So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. But then, whenever you're ready, go ahead and continue. I think that's a really good point. I love how you brought up, the $100 million since 2011, which that's over 14 years. $100 million, that's close to $10 million a year. It obviously is a little less than 10 million. Where I'm doing simple math here, but that's a lot of millions of dollars per year. I would take one government contract that was worth $8 million for 1 year, and I would be set. Like we could, we'd be flying high.
We'd be shilling for the
And
CIA, no problem.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I would like to bring up maybe later, or whenever. But is that people don't often still underestimate Peter Thiel, and I think one of the things that bothers me about that is he holds the keys to Palantir, which is like the global. Well, so far it's at least the national. We don't know what their international powers are yet. We haven't
I've
done that.
seen
We
they
haven't
do
got
have
that out of
international
them.
presence. I've seen them on I saw them on like a race car before, as a sponsor on like a international race team.
So they're definitely they're a global surveillance
Yeah, I think
unit,
they're
and
global.
like
They're not just here in the U.S. They're going everywhere.
which
Like,
makes sense because they're
yeah,
CIA backed.
yeah.
Like they're probably in every CIA outfit, and it just makes me feel like like if I was Peter Thiel and I had the technology Palantir, I would build in some sort of failsafe that was like, if I didn't check in every 6 hours or 12 hours or something, or if I died, that Palantir like either like shuts off or self implodes, or like I would ensure that there's no way that the CIA could come in and like take it out from underneath me. It's not like a patent or a blueprint or something like that where the government can just delete you and then come in and take your stuff, right? I'm sure that Peter Thiel has some sort of powerful backdoor built in, or not backdoor, but like
Like a John McAfee
fail
situation kind of thing, right? Like where he is like, oh
exactly.
yeah, I'm gonna release all this information once I die, and then he dies, and then
Yeah,
where'd the information go?
yeah, right. And that's what I think is they figured out where his backup was. Like he shouldn't have said that. He should have just like
Just released it.
implied it. And
Just tweeted it out,
I think they like, yeah, they were like, okay, we got to find this shit, and then they were like,
Nope.
it was very weird seeing his Twitter account post something about fucking meme coins like
Yeah.
in the last couple months. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
But
I did. I saw something
anyway,
about that.
whenever you're down, I'm down to continue with this.
Okay, I'm gonna continue. Once something like Immigration OS is set up and then it's only improved and expanded, government loves its tools to ensure citizens comply. I think there should be concern about two things. First, the process and laws of immigration. It needs to be consistent and simplified. Second, the government's use of Palantir as a tool for policing illegals and citizens alike. Thiel might not hold an office, nor does Elon technically, but JD Vance is an associate of both and is the vice president. Once again, a VP associated with a company that has lots of government contracts? Question mark. It just screams Dick Cheney and Halliburton. Although I don't have evidence that JD is collecting a check from Palantir like Cheney was from Halliburton while he was VP. But my point is that we need to be aware of what the government is doing with Palantir, and it's very dystopian and scary to think what kind of horrors they could induce. And that's the end of that, basically, thought.
Yeah, I think that you touch upon a lot of really important things too, even in just that small amount of time, right?
Yep.
About the fact that, like, Elon can't run for president. He could technically run for some positions of office, I'm sure, but he can't run for president. But that doesn't mean that his kids can't. And like you said, it doesn't mean that he can't get appointed again. I think that was in the messages that we had just before we started the show that you mentioned, where Elon is probably going for appointment again. And even if even though Trump maybe not is part of the direct club, I don't know. I don't know what Trump's role is in Peter Thiel's game, but Trump is surrounded by Peter Thiel lights, right? Like
Peter Thiel disciples.
Yeah.
Trump is a Peter Thiel ally. Like he's like, how LBGT has like allies. Well, Trump is an ally.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
He's just an ally. He's not necessarily like in the circle, but he's like he's definitely a friend.
Yeah, he's definitely a friend, and he definitely benefits, right? I'm sure there's benefit, right? Because yes, like when we brought up about Peter Thiel and JD Vance and Trump, I'm sure he's getting some sort of wheels greased somewhere, or something for his own agendas. Perhaps he has access to Palantir, where he's like, yo, I need to get rid of XYZ, or I need to know what they're doing, and then they're using Palantir like that. Because there's nothing to say, there's nothing to stop them. There's no oversight, right? Like, first of all, who's going to tell the CIA, hey, show us what you've been doing monitoring national security? The CIA is going to be like, no, it's national security, right? Like, we can't
They can use that card anytime they want.
Mm-hmm. And which means they can use Palantir any way that they want. And you want to tell me that these people who are like sociopathic and kind of crazy aren't in there using it to stalk their ex-girlfriends or like look up their enemies or like
silence political opponents.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I feel like. And then like you said, maybe there isn't a paper trail between between Peter Thiel, Palantir, or JD Vance. But that doesn't mean that there isn't benefit, right? Like some
Yeah,
people are like, oh well, there's no
mutually
paper trail,
beneficial.
but who knows? Yeah, what wheels are being greased behind the scenes? Like are they giving a house to him, like they did the BLM people or Bernie Sanders? Who knows? Like what? Like there's so many ways that a wheel can be greased without
Having a
the
physical
public having
connection or like a paper trail at all, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. There's or it could be and it could be from something totally random. It could be a gift from some like Balkan prince or something. Like or whatever. Oh, I'm JD Vance's cousin. I'm giving him my house in Virginia. And really it's Peter Thiel Umbrella Company.
yeah,
I don't
or
know. There's just
like
so many
or
ways
like
to.
BlackRock or something. They could like gift him some real estate. Oh, here's some real estate.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so I think we could continue on with the thread too if you wanted, but I would love to hear some of your thoughts too about this recent like land deal that got shot down. Luckily, like it didn't go through. I think it got removed, but they wanted to give all of that like national or not give. They wanted to put that national park land up for bid, but it was basically going to be like Black Rock National Forest, right?
Oh
Or
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
then what did you think about all that? I thought that was pretty wild to even try.
Yeah, it was wild, but I have the unfortunately I'm on the libertarian side of things. I don't cuz the thing is they didn't buy the land like you know morally correctly or whatever or legally. They don't technically own it cuz they stole it. They fall for it, I guess, technically. Whatever, but they don't own it and they shouldn't be able to sell it like that because if they make profit, they're profiting on people that they stole from, Native Americans mostly. And then so I think what they should do is instead of selling it, have like a lottery. Since you can't, it's unreasonable to try to find the original owners and give it back because like they're probably dead or who knows. And how can you verify that anyways? So you have a lottery and you give it away and let people homestead on it. Pretty much. That's if you're gonna get rid of it out of federal hands, you might as well just like lottery it and be like, all right, random winner gets 50 acres. Here you go, have fun.
Yeah.
That's what they should do.
Right.
That's
And
like the
and
proper way to do it
I'm sure
because
there's
you
got to
can't
be some
profit.
sort. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Um, I mean, I don't think that the government should be selling off land and assets anyway. Like, I think that's not cool. But I think like, and I do understand, but I was in a space just recently where someone brought up is like the government has a bunch of infrastructure built already, buildings and stuff like that built already that they could easily, that are like sitting half used or a tenth used. They could easily convert all these other cubicles or whatever into apartments or stuff like that if they're so concerned about um, housing, right? I think that was the thing is like they were saying they were going to turn it into some sort of low income housing. And, I think that's great and all too. But then what? That means what? They're going to have to build like Walmarts out there and all this like a little mini city, like because otherwise, what? These low income housing people are going to have to drive like 2 hours to the nearest city to get a job. Like they're going to be
Yeah,
all the way out in
that's not gonna work.
Yellowstone.
That's not viable.
Yeah,
Yeah, it has to be like
yeah. So
homesteading stuff. It can't be anything else, I think.
yeah, it has to be somebody who's going to care for the land because they have to work it.
Yeah,
Right? They're gonna have
they
to
have to
build their
farm it
house and
or
build their stuff.
have cattle on it or something.
Yeah,
Like I don't know, because that's the only thing that makes sense.
yeah,
Unless you were to be like kind of communist and you're like, all right, well, we can plant a city here. That's kind of communist, but yeah,
yeah. At the base of the mountains, just all of a sudden new metropolis.
just putting some roads. Like you're basically playing real life Sim City at that point. Sounds
Yeah,
good to
right.
me, but
Seriously,
but it's not. It doesn't really align with my political expectation there.
I think I think that's basically what it is, right? They're trying to play City, global conquest. It's a game to them. They're just moving their pieces. Right click, select.
Yeah, it's just like Civ, but man, that's crazy.
So yeah, I never thought about it like that before. So you kind of like talking about rights and current events and stuff, you bring up an excellent point in here as you continue down this thread. I love this thread. This is one of my favorite threads. I just reread it again, like I said, just a little bit before we started this, and you just bring up so many good points. Obviously you go on to the riots, which happened. I don't know if they're still happening. I haven't looked to be updated. I haven't heard anything. It was kind of like one of those swept under the rug things.
Yeah, I haven't heard
But
anything either.
I like how you bring up too, like and I laughed because as an anarchist too, I was like, I have the same opinion, and I think it's crazy. But just like how we do live in a federal society, right? Or I mean, like we are states' rights. States' rights exist, but there is the overarching constitutional law and rights. And laws and stuff like that. The federal laws, and I just think it's so wild that those people there were trying to stop Trump from sending in the National Guard. And like I think he should have done that way back in 2020 with Seattle and Portland, and I think he should have utilized this power before, right, to like stop.
Yeah, he could have. He could have during the COVID riots, right?
Yeah, they just played him really good publicly. Like they made it seem like if he did that, then he would be a tyrant. And it's just like,
and they're trying to play that card now, though. That's the thing. It's trying to play it now too. Like now he's a tyrant for trying to do it back in early June. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he did the right thing. I think that these people, you and I get into the fourth generation warfare kind of aspect of things. I don't know what that was. It could have just been angry liberals. They destroyed things they destroyed more of our country than any foreign opponent really has in a while.
They're effective at it too.
Yeah, they are domestic terrorists in a lot of ways. Not all liberals. Obviously, my mom isn't some liberal terrorist, but they're the ones out there trying to burn down police stations and lock citizens in buildings that are on fire and stuff. And sure, they're cops or whatever, and but you shouldn't be doing that kind of thing. That's terrorist shit.
Yeah, that's those are still human beings. Even if cops are pieces of shit, they're still humans. I mean, yeah.
Totally. And I think so. Then you bring up the Whiskey Rebellion, which is something that I don't know a lot about. If you want to just cover that a little bit for us.
Yeah, I'll just start from the tweet before that, and then I'll read on, and that'll kind of cover it. So obviously, don't care for laws by any stretch, but you can't complain about riots you caused. If I put my constitutional law hat on, it's so crazy to me that a state can just ignore federal law without expecting swift consequences. I know it's insane as an anarchist to make this point. My mind immediately compares this to the Whiskey Rebellion or the civil rights protest interventions, where military troops were deployed to quell rebellion. Again, constitutional hat, Trump merely enforcing the law, albeit a shitty law. If you don't want to comply, the feds can intervene. It's not going to be popular, but why does Trump care? He's a sitting duck, second term. Back to regular me, I think we all know this situation isn't going to improve, and I'm expecting continuing outrage. Trump, California, protesters have all handled it wrong, in my opinion. And then I said, and then I found out some more news about it. He deployed, 1,500 National Guard were deployed on the Texas border. The stark contrast of Texas handling illegals in California is just a picture of bipartisan infighting. I wonder how the cartels will handle this militarized approach. Certainly more difficult. And then I go into the constitutional part of it, back to the constitutional part of it. So a federal judge ruled Trump's federalizing of the National Guard was illegal because it didn't meet the qualifications for insurrection or rebellion. It's arguable, but part of that particular law is actually the inability to enforce the law. So if the protests were hindering ICE from doing its job, then Trump had every right to federalize the Guard, not to mention California is very close to obstructing federal agents from their duty. Obviously, this power shouldn't be abused, but it seems to me the riots were big and violent enough to qualify. You tell me. And then I posted the link to the Insurrection Act. Because obviously.
Right, and I love that you did that, and I also love that you bring up, like there is a point in time at which these things turn from it's just mostly peaceful into like okay now like okay we could buy it before we could see that it was just a couple of angry people in the protests that were causing a little bit of damage, fine, but then it starts to turn on to full blown city damage, people are in danger, you know like it just turns into a mob mentality, like, and I feel like the citizens that aren't involved in that deserve to be safe. And the things that their tax dollars have all gone to that they work for deserve to be safe, right? Because like their tax dollars are going to have to pay to fix all of the things that these protesters broke.
Oh, and
And if
also
those
pay for
protesters
they
already
pay for the
own,
guard too. They pay for the forces that are being sent in, the taxpayers in Los Angeles. So they're paying
we're just
double.
getting screwed all.
Yeah, they're paying
Go
double
ahead,
or
sorry.
triple.
Yeah, screw all the way around.
It's 134
and then
million.
maybe injured and that's so much. And it's like, and maybe they're getting injured and their house or their business getting destroyed too, just in collateral damage, right? Like,
Mhm.
and it also just kind of brings me back to the thing, like we should like protest all you want, right? I don't think in the last 5 years, thanks to like the left and stuff, protesting really seems to be turned into violence, right? It means violence, right? Like we haven't seen a right wing protest, or at least I haven't looked at a right wing protest in a while. I haven't seen the need for one or whatever. But like, they didn't do it violently, right? I mean, it's just been they're not trying to burn down their city, right? And especially if they're protesting, they probably like the city that they live in or the town that they live in. So why would they try to burn down Uncle Bob's shop?
I can think of two
like,
actually.
right?
I think Charlottesville and the January 6th one. And the violence didn't
Oh,
come
yeah.
from the conservatives that were protesting. By the way, it was from the cops in J6, and it was from the communists and NAFTA in Charlottesville. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about one of those,
Yeah.
but
And they even said beforehand, they were like, we're going to dress up, like as our opponents, and we're going to be in this crowd and we're going to pretend, or we're going to cause real violence pretending to be these people. That's our game plan. And that's what they put out there. That's what they said. That was their marching orders. You could see it. And everybody's like, no, that's not what they're going to do. And it's like, that's what they said they were going to do. Like, I don't know. Would people tell you who they are, believe them, or what they're going to do? Hey, it's our belief that we should wipe out Western influence. And we're like, nah, you don't actually believe that. Like, come on,
it's
man.
wild.
Which actually kind of funny enough that I said that. The thread then goes into the Iran and Israel thoughts. If you want to continue into that line of thinking.
Yep. So then, this was like a day later, of course, this conflict broke out. So the most obvious thing, this conflict is marred by thousands of years of hatred and war. There is no easy solution. Anyone with common sense and fear of death should be begging Trump not to incite World War III or worse, nuclear war. The U.S. has historically been self-defeating in regards to Iran. Every move from Eisenhower in the 50s to now with the full backing of Israel by the U.S. military has just made Iran more militant and dead set on destroying Israel. I can't really blame them either. The biggest problem is Zionism, which is separate from actual Judaism. I think Zionism is also why peace can't be reached, because it's the idea of protecting the Jewish homeland. As long as Muslims exist, it's like a forever enemy. But the US sticking its nose in there isn't helping. The biggest mistake in all of this conflict is the creation of Israel after World War II. It was carved out of Palestine and possibly some other countries. I don't know if it was. I don't remember which countries it was carved out of. I kind of said fact check there. And it was done unilaterally by the Allied powers. It simply shouldn't have happened. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually agree, and I like how you put fact check there because I do think maybe some was from Lebanon. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a
But
little
it
bit
was
from
like,
a few countries around that area. I know Palestine
yeah,
was one big one that they took a lot from, but the other ones were
and
like
it
I think
was just a
Lebanon,
quieter.
Jordan, stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. And maybe one, I don't know. I want to say Egypt was involved for some reason, but don't quote me on that either.
Maybe, yeah,
I
maybe.
could be very wrong about that, but it is kind of like, yeah, sure that the Jewish people needed somewhere to go, and they've always needed somewhere to go, and they do need their own land and stuff, but I don't feel like us using military force, or it was, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Britain led the charge on this one more, and really backed the creation of Israel. I mean, obviously, Western powers backed the creation of Israel. So whether it was Britain or us, it was. But like, I mean, we did. We landed there and we physically took land, or Israelites landed there and physically took land, and obviously we backed them. And then they've had to hold that land, and it's pretty clear. Like, they're not wanted there, and I don't have an answer, right? Like, I don't have an answer. Um, but I do agree that Zionism is a big part of that problem, because I think that Israelites, your everyday Israelite, right? They don't, they're not out there trying to kill Palestinians or whatever, or causing problems. You would hope, like, and it's like the idea of the Zionist state rather than just having a homeland for Israel, and they're very active in terms of subversion and global intelligence and espionage and hacking. They really do kind of run around punching some of the Arabic world in the face, and then they run to cover under us when the Arabic people, whichever group of people it happens to be at that time, whether it's Palestinians or Iran or whoever else they're beefing with at that time, like, and then we kind of got to get like drawn into it a little bit, or have to like flex, or have to worry about it, or have to send them funding, or people bring up things and they're like, oh well, we own the rights to the Iron Dome or whatever, and it's like, I don't care. Each one of those missiles costs like, don't quote me on this, but thousands of dollars for
Millions of
each time
dollars. It's
that.
millions of dollars.
Yeah, okay, so exactly. It costs so much for us to shoot it off to stop them from getting hit when they're running around punching all their neighbors in the face. Like, stop punching your neighbors in the face. I'm sorry that you got persecuted in, you know, like 80 years ago, right? Like, I'm sorry that that happened, and Hitler did a terrible thing or whatever, but like, I think that we should move on. It's almost been a century since that happened, and whatever Hitler did doesn't excuse the fact that you're running around punching all your neighbors in the face, and you're like, oh well, they did this to me first, and they did that to me, and this and that, and it's like, whatever. Like, can you just stop being aggressive, right? Please just stop aggressing. Like, if they attack you, fine, get it, right? Like, attack back, defend your state, right? Like any country would want to do. But I don't think it's very fair, that I mean, to me, Iran has been very patient with us, like very patient, and with us meaning the West. And I think that, they really have like showed a lot of temperance in their actions in returning fire, so to speak. And I mean, obviously they attack back, right? But I think they showed a lot of temperance in not just going full scale attack. And like this last time, they're calling it a war, right? They call this a war. Whatever
Well,
just
it
happened
was. It
between
was a
Israel
war.
and
It
Iran.
was a war.
It's like the 12. They're calling it like the 12-day war, right? Which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
fucking retarded. And
Well,
and it's like Israel's like, oh, Iran is over there, and that makes me uncomfortable, so I'm gonna shoot rockets at them. And then Iran was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, yeah, we don't like you, but we weren't shooting you or attacking you or anything. Like, we're gonna launch back.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to sneeze into the mic. But then it's like, they really, and then I would expect them to attack back too. Like I ask people all the time, I'm like, what would America do if somebody launched missiles at us?
Oh,
Right?
we
Like,
would
what are we
attack
gonna?
back full
We're just gonna,
force, no doubt. Yeah. Israel
yeah,
kind of used like
you
the
know,
U.S. style of foreign policy, which is, we'll get into that later, but it's basically preemptive. They preemptively attacked the threat, or what they considered a threat, I
yeah,
guess.
right. Like they're like, oh, we have to eliminate this. The hospitals and schools in Iran are a big threat to us. We need to take them out in Tehran immediately.
Well, they also
And
targeted like military generals and shit too, but yeah. I mean, all the same.
yeah, yeah, to them, they don't care.
If
it's
it
all
hits some
good.
civilians, oh well.
Yeah, they're not our civilians, is what they say.
Exactly.
So if you would like to continue.
Yeah. All right. Just learned a new thing. Israel didn't try to take Iran's supreme leader because that religion, martyrdom, is how leadership passes other than years of study and clerical knowledge. So by leaving him alive, it doesn't allow consolidation or a reason for an extreme response of other factions and of the religious party within Iran. The next in line would be the son, but he doesn't possess the required years of study, and with his father still kicking it, it would just be controversial. Israel mostly struck civilian and military targets, only cutting Iran's ability to act. Another point is that Another point that is important is those religious factions mentioned are more militia-based style of leadership and practice, so therefore more aggressive if the opportunity arose with the killing of the supreme leader. Trump saying, "We know where the supreme leader is, and we won't take him out yet. Buddy, given my threat here, you better think twice. Iran would definitely attack and be aggressive since I explained the power void would be filled with extreme Islamic militias." And then this is like, that was like, because there was like 3 days between two of these tweets, and then and then after this last tweet, I basically said, "Not gonna lie, the U.S. hasn't learned a thing in our entire foreign policy existence. Do politicians know there's other means of actual diplomacy? I've been saying it for years." Yep.
Truth. It's true. And, like, you bring up a really good point of, like, them intentionally not attacking these certain targets, right? Like, because then they're like, oh, that would escalate it too much. We're really just trying to be annoying and cause a lot of damage to this other nation, but we don't want them to be able to escalate it to war. We want to stay just under that line, where, like, and continue to do our shit, but not cross the actual line into Iran striking back. And everyone just thinks that Iran is, for some reason, like, still living in tents and riding camels in the desert. I guess, like, they think that Iran has no like, military capabilities or anything like that.
Well, I mean,
And
considering
don't
that
get me
half of
wrong, yes,
Americans probably don't know where Iran is or can't point it on a map, is like, come on. You're giving them too much credit.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And,
Like,
America is strong in some ways, but, like, I always say that Iran's best military strategy is trying to combat ours. Like, that they like built their military presence around, like, attacking our military or our styles of military, because Iran and that whole area has been dominated by these colonial powers for so long, that they had to learn how to fight differently. They didn't have the same sort of resources, but they still need to learn how to put up a fight. And Iran is dangerous. Like, they are really dangerous, and people are like, oh well, they've never done anything, and it's like, well, if by never done anything and you're expecting them to, like, launch a fleet of soldiers and try to, like, land in Atlanta, land in Georgia, right? Like, that's not what warfare looks like anymore. Like, they're not gonna
they have a network of
mobilize their troops.
terrorists. That's how they fight people.
Yeah,
They don't fight with soldiers, they fight with terrorists.
yeah, yeah, and Iran is funding a lot of our enemies, and Russia and China are too, I'm sure. All those terrorist cells, Hamas. I mean, not Hamas, Hezbollah, or whichever. I mean, who knows, right? Like how many different things they're funding. They're standing a force in Syria. I'm sure.
Yeah. They
They're
have
definitely.
Syria. They have Hezbollah. I think Hamas is funded by them too. They have a lot. There's a
I
lot
think so
of
too.
different terror sects they fund basically because it's the same extreme religion that they have basically. The supreme leader is the leader of those terrorist groups, like religiously.
Right.
So it's the
Exactly.
same
And
guidance.
and they're standing up against America pretty well on those fronts. Syria is still a problem. Syria's been a problem for 11 years or more or whatever. And
More, I
just
think,
we
right?
don't
Like
talk about
way
it.
more, like 15, I think, because ever since Obama started like that, getting involved in that civil war there with Assad, he's out now.
That's
But
right.
I mean, it's still going on.
Yeah, there's still problems. Turkey's still up to stuff over there. Like these. It's not like we can just. It's not like we can just run in and wipe people off the map anymore or whatever. I guess America, like we have some technological superiority, um, but that doesn't bode well for the style of warfare that our enemies have developed in order to fight that. And I'm not saying that we're weak. I'm just saying that our enemies really sat down and were like, fuck, we're tired of getting killed. Like we're getting our asses kicked for hundreds of years. How do we fight against this? What tactics do we use? And now we've pissed off enough of the world, and they've gained enough of this also religious extremists and bought mercenaries. They have money now too, and so they really were just like, we're not going to buy a standing army. We're going to buy a shadow army, and that's where our attacks are going to be. It's not that Iran is going to invade Chicago. Like that's not
No,
how it works anymore.
I mean
That's
they have
American
like
style
300. I
warfare.
heard they have 300,000 troops though. Still, so they don't have no troops. They have
That's a
some.
lot.
Yeah, they have some.
I mean, we isn't that about equivalent to us?
No, we have like 2 million or 1.5 or something.
Do we?
Yeah, I believe so. I
But
don't know what the exact
so
number is now, but
300, but something like that. That's
yeah.
fair. 300,000 isn't terrible, but South Korea. I mean, North Korea has a bigger standing army than we do. They have like, I don't know. They have a wild. It's bigger than us. I remember that, and obviously it's because everyone's conscripted. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
mean, and
conscription.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's even strong or anything, but it is. They would have just more bodies. Like our enemies have more bodies to throw
So does China, man.
at this problem than we have ability. Yeah, China has us on a 7-1. Or they could put. I'm sorry, no more than that even. It's like they could put one person on every person in the United States and have a little Chinese bodyguard follow you everywhere and still have 700 million people to run their country. Or something like that. I think they're up to like 1.2 billion now, and what? India's at like 1.5
Yeah,
billion
India's
people or something like
huge.
that.
Yeah, they have a lot. I don't know if they have a lot of soldiers though. I don't think they
I don't either.
militarize too much because they're kind of more like
I think they militarized to protect themselves from Pakistan and China, if I am correct.
Yo, yeah,
But
Pakistan for sure, but I don't know about China. I think their beef is mostly with Pakistan, the territories in the north, by the Himalayas.
yeah, and I know all three of them fight over Kashmir, and that's
Yeah, that's the province they all fight over. So that's a whole other issue and topic, I think. Yeah,
totally.
yeah,
But Russia, BRICS is what? Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and then there's a bunch of other countries on board now too. I think Venezuela and a bunch of others are kind of getting on now. But you got to think if like India, Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia are
Iran's
all
technically a
kind of
brick.
getting.
Technically, they're
I
allies with
think,
them.
yeah, yeah, that's what I thought. I think they're one of the subcategories. They're not one of the
No.
BRICS,
They're not in
but they're
the
one
they're
of
not in
the
the
people that.
acronym, but they have a deal with Russia and China for oil and all that. recently.
Exactly. And so, like, how could we think that they wouldn't stick to their alliance, right? Like, even just in terms of pragmatic profit, how can we think that Russia and China and stuff, if we fucked around too much, wouldn't, not to say like step in, but like maybe they would, right? What if Russia sent in troops to Iran like we send in troops to places that we don't want our opponents to shoot? Because then, like not that we're sending in troops to shoot their rifles, but just to stand there. And then if you hit, somebody who's wearing an American flag on their patch, well, then you're getting the American treatment, boot up your ass.
Yeah.
But like, what if Russia did that? What, like, because we wouldn't attack, like, we wouldn't attack Russia if they did that. Like, if they put bodies in it, we would yell at them. We would be like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? God damn it, that's not our, like, and if Russia's like, well, we just wanted you to stop the bombing, like, or told Israel, us told Israel, like, we just want you to stop the bombing, like that would, that would cause an issue because we wouldn't directly attack Russia. We wouldn't directly attack China, just like we hope that they wouldn't directly attack us. These proxy wars are something entirely different because there's that like plausible deniability, like, oh, was that rebel mine or was that rebel just a rebel? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know who's on
He
what
could have picked
side.
up that
It's
gun anywhere.
just crazy. It's just craziness
Yeah.
everywhere. It's like you don't know who's playing for what side. They could be playing for both sides. You never know. Like they could be double agents.
Yeah, exactly. Triple agents, even. Like just
Yeah, it's wild, man.
That's a funny concept to think about. There might be someone out there who has like 5 loyalties.
I mean,
like
think about
turkey.
like there's a famous example of this. Osama bin Laden. He fought for the U.S. in Afghanistan in the 80s, and then he fought for the Soviets, I think, too. And then he switched to the other side against the U.S. He fought for the U.S. against the Soviets, and he fought against the U.S. obviously for his terrorism.
Yeah. And then of course all his own little sects and anti-sects or whatever that happened over there with all their little warring, almost feudal society-ish.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it gets like that.
It is kind of, yeah.
Something similar. But there are times when like your neighbor is coming in with their rifles. Like it happens. It'd be like Nebraska being like, well, Kansas, like, fuck you.
Getting taken over, bud.
And the U.S. government just being like, yep, sorry, Kansas. Like they're coming in. We're busy over here. Like
that'd be like if New York was like, you know what, we're gonna go back and annex Vermont. Fuck them. Because Vermont used to be part of New York, so if they were like, yeah, we're gonna take that back. That maple syrup's ours.
We're gonna tap that.
Literally.
That's excellent. So I think that we're pretty close to finishing off the thread. And
yeah, there's a few more.
You also do bring up a good point in the thread, which also was kind of predictive because of what just happened with that shooter and the firemen or whatever in Idaho. And you finished it off talking about false flags in the thread. And then here comes this shooting, and people are shooting at firefighters. Like, I've never seen anybody in the history of ever that shoots at firefighters.
Yeah,
right?
the best government workers. That like the only ones that actually make any difference for anything.
Yeah.
The only ones
that people like actually get along with, right? Like,
yeah, they're actually okay. Like, I would still pay firefighters if the government collapsed. I'd be like, no, you guys get some salary. It's fine.
We'll figure out how to take care of you. We got it. Like,
yeah, and most fire departments are volunteer anyway, so it's like it's not even. So it's all donation anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And for them to like it was like they started a fire, and then firefighters showed up, and then somebody shooting a rifle, and then they found the kid dead there, and it's some like teen looking sort of kid wearing like sort of satanic imagery on his shirt. I don't know if he definitely had like a pentagram in one of the photos, which of course, got like I'm not saying that means anything at all, right? But just it's like this. It's like this kid who looks like he can barely carry his books up the stairs, and we're supposed to believe that he like started a fire and was a sniper on firefighters in a national forest. Like
No way. The skill level's not there. No way. I wonder if I could even do that, right? Like, could you do that? I don't know.
This kid raised by like Navy SEALs, dude. He was like raised by a wild.
How far was the shot? My God.
I don't know. Yeah, it just was like they were asking for too much, right? And I just
it's like the Las Vegas shooting a few years ago. The guy from the hotel window, how he killed all those people and got all those guns up there. How? There's no way he got it by himself. Yeah. No way.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Like five duffel bags full of rifles, and then somehow removed a hurricane-proof window from
by himself.
From a hotel room. Like, I had this meme that said, my workout goals are to be able to carry like 200 guns upstairs and then take out a hurricane-proof window. That's how strong.
Legit. Crazy.
And you could hear like the different rates of fire and stuff in that. It was like you could hear and the similar fires. Like, what was this dude? He was fucking ramboing 50 cals, like one in each hand. Like, no fucking way, dude. Like,
not even a chance. Not even a chance. That's crazy.
And so I don't know if you had seen the pictures of this kid yet, or the one that they're claiming did it, right?
Yeah, I did see some pictures. I saw some pictures of it, but who knows?
But he's like some tiny little, like, you want me to believe that he's outrunning people who live at like 8,000 feet or more altitude, and he's running around in the fucking wilderness.
Like you said, this kid has SEAL training. Holy shit.
Yeah, right? Like, he graduated BUD/S in 07. He was born in 2010.
Dude, he was in your class when you tried to become a SEAL, right? Like, this kid was in your class?
Exactly.
You failed?
I failed out.
You failed to him?
He failed me out.
Dude, you're a pussy.
Yeah. He kicked me out. I challenged him to single combat, and he whooped my ass.
And he can obviously snipe way better than you, bro. Come on, man. Get good, bro.
Clearly. He clearly was very good with it. Like,
Jesus.
Some people were born with it,
Not you.
It wasn't Maybelline this time.
It wasn't you, though.
Nope, I didn't get those gifts, man. I think that we wrapped up on a pretty good thing, and my dogs are kind of getting crazy in my...
I have a little bit more if you want me to read it.
Yes, I do want you to finish off what you got for sure, and then...
then we can wrap up, because it's almost been an hour, so that's probably where we're going to stop.
Closing thoughts if you have any, and but please, finish off what you got for sure.
All right, so I posted like an article about people saying that isolationism is like appeasement, and then I say, we can get into that next podcast maybe. But I'll just read what I wrote about it anyway.
Okay, if you want, or if you want to give a breakdown of what it is, I'm not in a super rush either.
Well, I mean, I kind of explain it as I talk about it.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I said this is likely a fluff piece for Trump, but I have to say either the author doesn't know what isolationism is, or he's purposely twisting it. Trump's policy is quite the opposite of isolation. In fact, using military force rules it completely out. That being said, isolation is not the same as appeasement. Minding your own business isn't appeasing anyone. There are two different things on separate spectrums. In every case where he probably thinks isolationism led to war, I bet you we were attacked first. Now, granted, false flags exist. My point here is that real isolationism uses soft power up to the point of an attack on a country's border or soil. It's the ideal that you protect your borders and let everyone else figure it out. Realistically, America has to do some soft power because of its economic and military power within the context of a global power hierarchy. However, our handling of the Middle East, especially Iran, Israel, Iraq, and Afghanistan, has been nothing less than a tragic lesson in blowback, which all U.S. administrations since 1950 seem to have forgotten. You might read this and be like, but Garrett, hindsight is 2020. You just said U.S. position in the world matters. Indeed. What I'm arguing here is that the U.S. needs a more modest, less heavy-handed approach. In most cases, our foreign policy pits the U.S. against enemies the U.S. Made by intervening in a way via the CIA coup, or boots on the ground, or even air raid bombing. There are other ways that are more diplomatic and less bull in a china shop, especially when the threat isn't confirmed 100% as is the case in Iran. Now, how do you go about making sure Iran doesn't go full nuclear? It's complicated, but the U.S.'s backing of Israel isn't helping because we are biased, so it's thoroughly fucked. But if the U.S. promised to keep Israel from attacking, and we promised to remove sanctions and help Iran's economy, and provide Iran assurances that Israel would be held accountable the same way Iran is for its terrorism sponsorship, then at least the ball is in Iran's court to negotiate its terms and continue to live however they want to, as long as they don't try to go nuclear. Apparently, Iran is willing to work out a deal, not unconditional surrender, why would you, with the U.S. on the basis Israel dials it back. There has to be compromise on all sides. That's what diplomacy is. Another angle and possible U.S. entry reason, international law. International law violations are being accused of Israel depending on the severity in the laws themselves. This can mean potential for UN-approved U.S. entry or punishment for Israel on the world stage. Of course, having nuclear material doesn't violate international law. Having a bomb might. Iran doesn't have a bomb, well, that we know of at least. But if Israel is purposely attacking non-combatant civilians, it would be a violation of international law. Iran may also get flack for their self-defense retaliation attacks. The retribution for international law involving non-combatant civilians can vary widely. It could be censure, economic sanctions, or intervention from the UN security countries. The problem is that this could allow the U.S. to intervene, which I'm not sure this sort of thing would allow for taking out of Iran's nuclear facilities. Doesn't seem like it should. Never mind, Trump has unilaterally attacked Iran. We'll be lucky to avoid a nuclear holocaust. The lines are drawn. And that's the end of the thread.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of really good points, actually, in this part, too. Like, the whole thread is just it's phenomenal. I'm glad that we brought all of this up. But that let me scroll up and find this thing that you were talking about here. Oh, shoot. I really like, it would be, you do come up with a pretty decent solution. If Israel was kind of held accountable and Iran was allowed to just do its own thing, just don't threaten with the nuclear program, right? Just do your own thing and stuff. And then Israel just stopped, right?
Like you were saying earlier, you were kind of touching on it before when you said Israel should just stop attacking people and Iran should just mind their own business, and then if everyone just minded their own business, they'd be fine. There'd be no problems.
It'd be so easy.
Yeah, if they could just ignore each other for 5 fucking minutes, you know what I mean? Just
just one of you stop engaging for 3 seconds,
please.
It's not high school anymore, just stop with this.
They're like siblings that don't like each other, kind of thing. It's kind of like that.
Basically, and they just keep being you're like, stop talking. And one's like, well, he's a snot face. Oh yeah, well, he's weasel poking. You're like, shut the fuck up.
Anyone that has a brother or sister or whatever, you probably know what we're talking about there.
They probably get it, yeah.
Yeah, I get it because I had 2 brothers, so yeah.
Yeah. I like, putting a ball in Iran's court would be a good move. And I think that Iran would be responsible with it because they haven't full-on attacked. They haven't full-on used terrorist attack. They haven't full-on, done anything. Sure, they've shot missiles back at Israel or whatever, but I mean, I'm not going to play that side. Israel shoots, Iran shoots, everybody shoots. They're all shooting at each other over there. He said, she said, wham, quit shooting. But like, I think that, like, I do think, and then, like you said, Trump did just unilaterally attack Iran, which was dumb, and that cost us like $132 million, and the bunker busters didn't even do anything because the facilities were already cleared out and empty, and there was no nuclear residue after our bombings, which there would have been. We would have been able to see, like, okay, we hit something. There wasn't any, so they had already cleaned out the facilities. We were operating on old data. They knew, that, like, they knew, and so we just wasted 132 million. And I mean, I guess, like, and then Iran did agree to a ceasefire. And it was pretty much like as soon as Iran and Israel agreed to a ceasefire, Trump was like, okay, you guys got 12 hours, like, and Israel was like, empty the warehouses. Like, we have 12 hours, we're going to just bomb,
bomb the fuck out of them.
Yeah. And Trump was even like, dude, I said ceasefire. I didn't say empty your caches, as an attack. He was like, I said you could finish your current missions, not start entire new ones, and just empty your fucking,
empty the mag, bro. Just mag dumped it.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And like, I don't know. And Iran still didn't, like, turn around and be like, okay, well, we're fucking done with the ceasefire because they did that. Which it was a cheap shot. I haven't checked on the update between the whole thing yet. But I just, Israel needs sanctions on it, right? Like, I mean, as far as I understand, Netanyahu is charged as a war criminal and maybe convicted. And, obviously we've kind of talked about that too. Like, what does that even mean? But like, they cause so much damage to Arabic people, families, kids, lifestyles, infrastructure, and they cost us a lot of money to do so. And because we got to run over there and protect them all the time as they run around and pick these fights and stuff. And I just feel like, if it was someone else, right? Like, if Iran was behaving in the exact same way, we would have already been, like, way worse, tried to, like, do everything against them. Like, more. We would have done so much more already. But, like, and that's if Iran had done half of what Israel was doing. But, like, here, and this isn't anti-Jew, this is anti-war.
Yeah, it's an anti-war perspective, yeah.
Stop shooting your neighbors. Like, you have your land, you pissed them off, okay, fine. We can maybe try to figure that whole problem out, maybe. But, like, we certainly can't figure that whole problem out if you keep shooting your Arabic neighbors. Like, they're religious extremists. They're not going to take it. They're not going to stop. They don't care if they have to pick up a fucking rock and throw it at a tank, and which they have done. Kids have thrown rocks at tanks. Arabic kids have thrown rocks at Israeli tanks because their families are dead, and all they can do is throw a rock at it. And there was a kid that threw a rock at a soldier and got shot. Like,
I mean,
so,
fuck around and find out, right? Like,
I guess, right? Like, fuck that kid.
Not my morals, but.
I thought Israeli soldiers were trained to be all tough and stuff, and a rock, I guess, is like.
A rock rattled them.
I don't know.
Bro, they're a worse SEAL than you, bro.
He must have launched that rock, dude. He fucking, like, triple spun before he threw it, like, whoa. Anyway, I think you bring up a lot of really good points, and then you also don't just talk about problems, you also bring up solutions. And I think that's also part of the problem that people often miss is like even if your solutions are wrong, which I don't think yours are, I think yours are pretty good, pretty solid. But even if your solutions are wrong, you should offer some sort of, be like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but
otherwise it's just complaining, isn't it? Like, I'm just complaining then if I just say, oh, it's a problem, it's a problem, it's a problem, and then if I don't offer a solution, I'm just being hypocritical and just being like, yeah, it's a problem, but just hot air.
Exactly.
essentially. It doesn't mean
And
anything. It's like, if I don't have a solution, why the fuck am I even talking about it? Just shut up, man.
yeah,
Right? Like,
right. At
that's how I
least
feel
guess
about
at
it.
something.
Yeah.
And I think you did good. I think that that is a reasonable option for a solution. Oh, that was something that I wanted to mention that you brought up that made me think about it. You compromise. The way
Mm.
that you mentioned compromise, I love the way that you mentioned it because, um, like the way that you said it made me think like everybody kind of should lose in a compromise. Nobody should walk away too happy in a compromise. Everyone should not feel like they lost, but a little bit feel like, oh, I didn't get what I wanted. There should be. Obviously, I'm not trying to say that everybody should walk away feeling like a loser because that's stupid. But everybody should walk away having to had sacrifice part of their agenda, whatever it is.
I mean, usually
And
that's how
I like the
compromises work. Usually, most
yeah.
of the time.
It's not just this force of thing where like you're gonna take our compromise, like
Well, that's not a compromise.
we'll put you
That's
under
just
clothes arrest.
that's an arm twisting.
Exactly, exactly. So I think that's beautiful that you mentioned that too. You know, oh, boo-hoo, Israel, you didn't get everything you wanted. Boo-hoo, Iran, you didn't get everything you wanted. Boo-hoo, America, you didn't get everything you wanted. Great. Have the bombs stop dropping? They have. Okay, cool. Then we're winning. Like
Yeah, that's the
you
only
guys
thing
all
that
lost a little bit.
matters. That's the only thing that matters. That there's
Yeah,
no bombing. There's no death. That's the compromise for
yeah.
real. And also, you brought up something
Isn't that a
about
win?
yeah, and you brought up about Netanyahu being a war criminal. It's the Geneva Conventions. That's the whole. That's
Say
the
that
war.
again.
Netanyahu being a war
Is it?
criminal. It's the Geneva Conventions. That's his. That's what he would be convicted by.
That's what he broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he was tried. I think he
Yeah.
is a
For the.
charged or convicted war criminal.
I don't know if he was charged yet, but I know he's definitely being tried for it in the World Court.
Yeah, the
That could have some
international
serious. That could be
criminal.
serious implications if he's actually found guilty.
Yeah, and especially if he's running around, like already on trial
And
with
that.
more war crimes going out there,
Yeah, and that
attacking
October
people.
7th thing is still not over yet. Like the October 7th thing is still going on. They're still fighting.
Oh yeah.
They're still fighting. They've annihilated most of those terrorist groups that were doing all the fighting, but still some skirmishes. Yeah. It's not a good look for him.
It's not a good look at all. And putting Gaza on the calorie restricted diets and all that stuff, like that's not looking very peaceful and pacifistic and philanthropic. Like
It's so
you're kind
weird.
of looking tyrannical and war criminal.
Yeah, it's so weird because he's like,
Yeah,
oh, well, Hitler did this to us. Well, you're becoming what you said you hate or what you said you don't like. You're becoming Hitler.
yeah.
You're literally
Like
genociding
were
these
you
poor
so
people.
abused? Yeah, yeah. And then using the Hitler atrocities to back that is just kind of like super low too. Like to turn around and be like, oh well, I'm going to use my pain in order to inflict pain upon others, and I don't want you to stop me because my pain. Like
Yeah, like
no,
his
stop
pain is
hurting
more
people.
than some other pain, but it's like, dude, it's the same. You're doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, I think you touched upon a lot of good stuff, and I love doing this one. And I think that you also laid good groundwork for next week
Yeah, I think we
for
have
us to
some
talk
stuff we
about
could
some
probably
things.
expand on, like the article. We could also expand on the insurrection thing, I guess.
Insurrection and isolationism, I
Yeah.
think, would be two great topics to expand upon. And also, we'll see what happens in this week, too, right? Maybe there's be some current events that go on that we want to discuss.
Yeah,
But
hopefully.
as always, good job, my friend.
Thank you.
And yeah, this is a lot of fun. So I'm gonna get out of here, and I'll catch you later. We'll be doing the spaces later tonight too. If you want to come and join us, I don't know, just come by and bullshit. The informal ones are informal, but yeah.
All right. Let's stop the recording. Everyone subscribe.